It all started, innocently enough, about 20 years ago.
It was partially my fault my father became an addict. We went to a local photography studio to get our family picture. The photographer told us he needed a few minutes to organize the pictures, so we went outside to kill some time. I dragged my father next door to the Burlingame Pez Museum. This is where I bought my first Fozzie Bear Pez dispenser for somewhere around $2.
I was eyeing this Roadrunner Pez dispenser. When they told me it was $20, I was shocked that a piece of plastic would cost so much. I was so upset that I grabbed my son and decided to leave the store. For days I was thinking about that Roadrunner Pez dispenser because it was one of my favorite cartoon characters as a kid. So eventually I gave in and I went back to the store and plunked down my $20 and reached for the Roadrunner, and then I discovered right next to it was Wile E. Coyote, and I realized that Wile E. Coyote needs to be with the Roadrunner. So I ended up spending $100 that day, and that was the beginning of my Pez addiction. So eventually I became what is known as a Pez head, but I think of it more like a Pez addict. I soon learned that there are literally thousands of Pez dispensers to collect and dozens of different ways to obtain them, such as antique shops, Pez conventions, online Pez dealers, and probably the most popular way, on eBay. Eventually, my collection became so big, I began to worry about protecting them from everything from earthquakes to thieves. I eventually got a special insurance policy to protect my collection from both, from the Collectors Insurance Agency, CIA. In spite of having a policy, my obsession and addiction became so great that I enhanced my burglar alarm system, and at one point I even boarded up the windows when we went on vacation. I would even strap everything down to help protect them from earthquakes. My collection ended up becoming so big that it started to take over the whole house. It started in my son's room, but eventually the room wasn't large enough, so it moved to my daughter's room. Then it moved to our bedroom, our exercise room, and eventually it ended up in our guest room, to the point where there were so many Pez in the guest room we had to take out the sofa bed, and we had to tell my in-laws that they weren't going to be able to stay with us anymore because there was nowhere for them to sleep. Almost all our drawers and closets, if they're not filled with clothes, are filled with Pez dispensers, boxes and boxes of them. Let me show you around the house before my wife gets home. She doesn't really appreciate my hobby at all. These are the very first Pez dispensers made in the late 40s. They were made to look like cigarette lighters because they were originally designed for adults to dispense peppermint candies as breath mints for smokers. One of my rarest Pez dispensers is called Make-A-Face, and it takes after the Mr. Potato Head. One of the aspects of Pez collecting that a lot of people don't know about is the dark side of Pez collecting. It's almost like there's a black market in Pez collecting where people make Pez dispensers in the middle of the night in odd colors to sell to us crazy collectors for lots and lots of money. They call them test pieces, but they're really just bootleg Donald Ducks in all different colors. They sneak them out of the factories in the middle of the night and they sell them to people like me for lots of money. These are my mini minis. Well, actually, just my minis. The mini minis are over there. These are my mini Pez. New Pez dispensers are being made all the time. Most recent ones were from the movie Frozen. About 5 years ago, my family got together and they decided to perform an intervention. I think I knew it was coming, but I still wasn't prepared for it.
Put it this way, a house without any Pez would be a dream come true for me. I mean, I don't even have a problem with creepy, but this is just not right. For example, this empty kitchen is going through an extensive remodel. This remodel should have happened 20 years ago when we moved in. But because of someone's obsession with collecting Pez, I am now undergoing a remodel that should have happened 2 decades ago.
When my father started collecting Pez, I did it with him. I even made a website about Pez collecting for a summer school project. All the Pez were in my room to start. He was so worried about the Pez, he put a 2-sided deadbolt on my door and would board up the window every time we went on vacation. When I got older, I started bringing girlfriends over and they were creeped out by the Pez. So eventually I had to move all of the Pez out of my room.
Well, when I was younger, I didn't really care that my dad was clearly obsessed with Pez, but as I got older, it really started to piss me off to walk into my room and see all these creepy faces looking at me. So I kind of started to just move them out of my room in the middle of the night, because my dad obviously wouldn't let that happen if he was awake, so he didn't like that too much. But my mom and I remember we bought him a license plate that said Pez Nut, and he actually was kind of offended by it and went and got a different plate that says Pez Guy. But now I actually live in the garage that's separate from the house because his addiction has just gone so bad. He swore to us he would stop collecting, but it's just gotten worse.
My father has almost every Pez dispenser ever made. So no one ever buys him Pez dispensers as gifts because it's almost impossible to find one he doesn't have. When I came home from studying abroad, I showed him the Sid Pez dispenser my girlfriend got me, and he said, "Wait, I don't think I have the European Sid." He quickly takes this Sid and brings me another one and tells me I won't know the difference. He didn't seem to care at all that it meant something to me.
Well, now I found a better use for my dad's Pez, so here you go, guys.
So we all know that my brother Glenn is completely obsessed with Pez, and it's gotten so bad that our whole family has been instructed not to talk to him about Pez. And more importantly, he's been instructed not to talk to us about Pez. Otherwise, there's some contract, I believe, it might be a myth, but there's some contract between Grandpa and him that he signed, Glenn's dad, where he's not allowed to talk about Pez. But one day I recall my children came over to the house and they got a very long-winded tour of Glenn's Pez collection. Subsequently, I didn't know this conversation occurred, but the kids said, "Oh, we like Pez." And then of course Glenn found a cohort, someone to share in his obsession. And those cohorts happen to be my children. And now I have to put up giant shelving on the walls, and it takes up a quarter of the room. It's absurd. Except, of course, Glenn says that our kids now probably have the biggest Pez collection of the under 10 crowd in the Bay Area. And I wouldn't be surprised if that were true. But the worst thing probably here is that they've developed an unhealthy obsession with Pez as well. And I'm sure that'll transfer over into future collections that they'll have, and they'll turn into hoarders of a different kind. But good luck, Glenn, and no more Pez, please.
A few years ago, Glenn went to the Pez convention in Cleveland, Ohio. All the pictures he was posting on Facebook were him with Bart Simpson, Pez's, everything, and I was starting to worry that he didn't actually have any human friends and there might not be any humans there. I don't know.
About 2 years ago, my craving for Pez collecting started to creep back in. I had to come in though. I need more Pez. I just can't get enough Pez.
Oh, if I got a Pez for you.
And I thought, given that my collection was so big now, with thousands of dispensers all over the house, that maybe I could start buying them and just hiding them in my collection in different little spots with hoping that nobody would catch it. But I really am running out of space, and it's getting pretty desperate.
The Pez. We've been trying to get rid of them for decades. We tried to take those Pez away. So many times we tried to take them away. We couldn't do it. It was impossible. They wouldn't go. We couldn't get rid of them. They kept coming back.